Welcome to Asshat Analysts, the debate game show where the points definitely matter and we take things way too seriously. My name is Josh Johnson, and I'm joined here with my roommates, Nathaniel Jackson.
Yo.
And Kyle Jennis.
Howdy.
Stay tuned to find out who truly is the king of pulling random facts and arguments right out of their ass.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Asshat Analysts. This week we have special guest Andy Corum. Say hello to the people, Andy.
Hello.
Alrighty, so to start off this week for our Parlay episode, we're going to be talking about the top 5 sci-fi films of all time. So what we did for this, every one of us here, Andy included, made a list of our 5 favorite sci-fi movies, or what we think's the best of all time, and we're going to go around and share what we picked. Nate, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. All right,
Start us off, buddy.
I went through and actually scored 20 films.
Nerd.
I made my top. I just thought off the top of my head, what are the top 20 sci-fi films that I've seen that I absolutely love, and scored them all. And my top 5 actually kind of ended up being a little different than I just thought off the top of my head it was gonna be. But it ended up being at number 5, I have Interstellar, which scored an 84 in my test. At number 4, I have Avatar in 2009 by James Cameron, which scored an 89.5 on my test. At number 3, I have Dune 2021, which scored an 89.5 as well. And yes, I have it slightly ahead, and that might partially be because of recency bias, but also I do just personally feel like it's a little bit better.
You've also seen it what?
I've seen it 5 times at this point.
5?
3 times in IMAX, 1 in 4DX, and 1 in standard.
Jeez.
And then at number 2, I have Jurassic Park 1993, the original, and I scored it at a 91.5. And at number 1, Empire Strikes Back, and it scored a 92.5.
Nice. That's a solid list.
Yep.
It's a very solid list. Josh, what you got, buddy?
So in the number 5 spot, I have Star Wars Return to the Jedi. And then in the number 4 spot, I have Planet of the Apes, the 1968 version. In number 3, I have Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. In number 2, I have The Prestige from 2006. And then in the first place, I have 2001, A Space Odyssey, which came out in 1968.
Is it that old?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yep.
Andy, what's on your list?
Okay, so my list is at number 5 spot, Alien. The number 4 spot, I have Gattaca. Number 3 is Back to the Future Part 1. Number 2 is Blade Runner. And number 1 is The Matrix.
Nice. Alrighty, so here's my list. Number 5, I have The Matrix. Number 4, The Terminator, the first one. Number 3, Alien. Number 2, Blade Runner. And number 1, Empire Strikes Back. I feel like, so Andy, Nate, and I have at least one, did Josh read me your list again one more time? I just want to make sure I have this correct.
Return to the Jedi, Planet of the Apes, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, The Prestige, and 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yep.
Josh
So
didn't
none
have
of us-
any overlapping
yeah.
with us. That's
Yep.
interesting.
Nope.
Josh, I'm intrigued because we on the Patreon episode, we all went through our lists again, and I've never heard of Eternal
Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Thank you. I've never heard of this movie until tonight. What is it about? I don't know. I don't know about this movie.
So it's about technology has been developed that can alter memories. And so it's commonly used for when people come out of relationships or they break up or get divorced. You can basically erase one person from your memory. And so it's like you never met them. And so it's about a guy who realizes that the person that he was in love with had this done to her.
Ooh.
And so he goes in and just kind of out of bitterness forgets her. And then kind of starts to get those memories back as the movie goes on, and is kind of fighting to try to get those memories back. So he realizes that he regrets his decision to just completely forget her. But there's some, I mean, it is science fiction, but it's kind of more grounded and not as kind of out there.
Yeah,
in
it's something realistic that I feel like I feel like a lot of people who have had relationship problems are like, man, I just wish I could just erase it from my brain and move on with my life or whatever like that. So
Yeah, well, and it kind of speaks to the, it's better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all. And so
right,
it's kind of exploring that.
Interesting concept. Would never want to do that ever.
Yeah. Well, that's a completely different like argument, but yeah, it reminds me actually the neuralizers from Men in Black. That's like that is to me like what that's based off of in a way.
I mean, it's a much more fleshed out kind of similar idea. It's memory loss,
Right.
Like, memory
Yeah,
loss
yeah.
is the cause of, or it's the idea of both. But
Yeah.
obviously, that's just an aspect of Men in Black, whereas this is the whole.
That's the whole
purpose
point of
that
the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's also more surgical in this than it is because in Men in Black, it's like they just wipe out.
Yeah, they just flash the
Well,
the
and
eyes.
they wipe out just an entire block of time as opposed to going back through all of your memories and altering things so that there's one aspect of that memory that isn't there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you lose all of your memories. You specifically lose memory of that one person.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Man, that's interesting. I love Prestige. Don't get me wrong. I just don't even think it's like one of Christopher Nolan's best films.
That's the
So
one with
The Magicians with
they
Christian
try to
Bale
like
and
they
and
try
Hugh
to
Jackman.
outdo each other or whatever, and it.
Yeah, and really thinking about that, like, I mean, I guess that is sci-fi because okay,
Yeah,
'Cause
the
all the stuff with
the Tesla machine
yeah,
that is
I didn't
created
think about
is-
all that.
is cloning and
Yeah, because
Um,
realistically, there's no like technology in that movie outside of the clone aspect of it that is like impacting greater humanity or is really anything outside of this world. And you don't find out till the very end that it's cloning, so that's the aspect to it.
well, it
Sorry,
speaks
I
to
haven't
how
seen the
that
movie yet.
it speaks to how that technology is used.
Yeah,
And how we should utilize it, and what is one of the greatest lines from it is when Tesla's talking to Hugh Jackman's character, and is have you we can certainly make this machine, but have you considered the cost? And he's like, price is no object. And he says, perhaps not, but have you considered the cost? And just kind of reiterates. That's the one.
I got you.
That it's not necessarily, what this machine can do, but it's how it's doing it and what comes from that. Which, spoiler alert, results in Hugh Jackman having to drown himself every night that he does the trick, and then being terrified and not knowing if he's the one that's going to survive or if it's his clone that's going to drown or if it's him.
yeah.
And so he goes into this every night basically thinking, in order to perform this trick, I am going to die.
Yep. Yeah,
One way or another. Yeah.
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 I'm gonna have to go watch this movie at
also,
some point.
Drowning is just one of the worst ways to die.
Oh God, yeah.
Why couldn't you? Yeah.
I would much rather any other way than drowning. That just sounds. Ugh.
You want to burn alive?
Yeah, I honestly I would take that over drowning. There's actually
Really?
Well, here's why we're getting very off topic, but we'll get back to it.
Your nerves burn off, and
Well,
then
yeah,
you can't
it's
feel
just
it
like
after
there's a
couple
sense
seconds,
of like it's not euphoria, but it's like there's a release before you actually die in burning alive in a sense. You don't feel it, you just get burned, and I don't know. There's more to it.
Okay.
This
is not the topic.
I do not speak from experience. Anyway,
Kyle, you've never been burned to death?
obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, I just didn't think of The Prestige as like a sci-fi movie until you said it. It's like it technically is.
Yeah, and it's listed as that being one of the categories that it can, like
Yeah.
one of the genres that it is.
Yeah.
But it also wasn't necessarily something that I thought of either until
Yeah.
I started looking into this.
Yeah, I mean, I know that's one of your favorite movies, and I was like, as soon as you said that, I was like, wait, there's no way he worked this in. How did?
Yeah, there's a reason it's number 2.
Yeah.
I'm just sad I left out Jurassic Park off my list. I really am, because I watched that movie a lot as a kid growing up, and I didn't even consider it for this topic.
Genuinely, I didn't either. I was doing research and like looking up like just sci-fi movies and stuff, and I was like, that is sci-fi. Like it is.
Yep.
And I was like, dude, okay, Jurassic Park is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Oh no, absolutely, 100%.
And partially because I'm a sound nut, I'm a music nut, and my dream one day is to be a film composer.
John Williams did an awesome job.
John Williams' score in Jurassic Park is probably the score that has moved me the most from any film. The scene where they're coming over the hill and then you see all the dinosaurs.
Yes.
Dude, that moment gives me chills every time. It doesn't matter how many times I've seen that movie. I get chills. And it's just that perfect score.
Yeah, it's really good.
It was something that I had thought about and was kind of thinking about putting it on my list, but it still probably would have been around the four or five kind of the place.
Yeah, even before I did my scoring, like I thought about it and was like, oh, I love that movie. I hope that gets on there in like 4 or 5. And it's number 2 on my list. And I was like, I guess that makes sense. Like, it is great.
Yeah.
It is phenomenal.
Yeah. It's it's a book originally. Like it's a book made written by Michael Crichton. Michael Crichton. I hope I pronounced it correctly.
Yep. Yeah, we have it on our shelf.
Yeah, it's right there. That's my copy.
Oh yeah, we do. Nice. But yeah, it's like a perfect, like almost perfect like film adaptation of a book.
Yeah.
Like it's good.
Speaking of film adaptations of a book, Dune.
I was gonna ask, like, the one thing this might have been because we went and saw it in 40X, which is for those of you who don't know, this is the one where it's like the chairs shake around, you get sprayed with air and everything. It's very immersive and like for me.
Well, it's not immersive.
Well,
it markets itself as being immersive, but it's so distracting.
Well, that's my problem is like for a movie like that, I would much rather like have seen it in 3D because for context, the director of Dune is the same guy who did Blade Runner 2049, and the way he does his movies is kind of draw them out in a way where it's like you focus on a lot of the visuals and everything. So like they both kind of slowly build, like you kind of just see the scenery and you pick up small details about the characters and everything. So it's one of those movies where you have to pay attention. So for me, seeing Dune in 40X kind of just it just threw me off. So also it's a very recent movie. So I didn't put it on my list because I'm like, well, it's too recent and part 2 hasn't come out yet. So I was like, plus there are a lot of other movies that I was like, these are just so iconic. I can't not put them on my list.
Doesn't matter that part 2 has not come out yet. No, here's why. Because even if it never got approved for part 2, it is still better than most of the sci-fi movies I've seen in my entire lifetime. And that's a lot. Dune, here's the thing with Dune. One, it's Hans Zimmer's best score he's ever done. The only comparison from his other scores that I think is close for me is his score for Dunkirk. But his score in this movie is absolutely incredible. The framing of some of the like camera angles and the way that there's a lot of moments where you kind of pan out, and he does a really good job of showing just how big the world is to a small moment that doesn't really have necessarily a large impact, or it's just a moment to help you get to know the characters, but he uses the camera angles and the framing of each scene to show how important every little small aspect of this film is. It's so incredible.
My issue with it was that it didn't feel like a completed film. It feels like we had Act 1 and part of Act 2, but we haven't actually gotten an Act 3 to it.
it was Act 1.
Yeah. So, and that's I do think that it is important to have the rest of the story for it to make it onto my list. I do have a very high hopes that I think it will make it onto this list at some point when the rest of it is completed. But there's just not enough of it that I've seen to be able to.
So if the rest of the story tanks, you're saying that would be just a reason to justify taking it off of the list?
Yes.
No, absolutely not. You know why? Disney sequel trilogy to Star Wars. Did those sequel movies justify anyone saying that The Empire Strikes Back is not worth being on any top sci-fi list? Absolutely not. And it is the exact same thing.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. It is the continuation of a story.
It is the continuation of the story. However, there was still each one of the Star Wars movies has a Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3.
That is not true.
And they are completed in trilogies.
That is not true. And even if you look at Dune, it theoretically has an Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3, and then also ends with the beginning of the next story and the final duel at the end.
I think there is a difference between the way Star Wars is structured and
and
Dune.
I think Dune's structured better.
I'm just saying Dune is not complete yet. I don't think it's complete.
As a whole,
yeah,
it's not complete.
The original book is split into 3 books in itself, and
so is this book 1 and part of book 2?
This is part 1. I don't even think it's. I don't know. I'm still reading the book as of right now. I'm pretty sure it's only going to be the first book of book 1, part 1.
So you think they'll have to make a part 3?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's 6 total books. So
oh my god,
I have no idea how many movies they're going to make.
Denis Villeneuve is going to be making these movies the rest of our lives,
and I'm okay.
Or
with
his, whichever.
That's fine.
But my main point of the difference is that each of the 3 kind of trilogies in Star Wars right now are kind of complete stories in and of themselves, and the other pieces are not necessary in order for that trilogy to be fulfilled and have like that bit of the story is told and completed. And there are expansions and things that you can go into further detail, but like the episode 7, 8, and 9 didn't need to happen.
Very true.
They didn't need to happen. Whereas Dune, right now where it's at, needs other parts, otherwise it loses the significance of the first one.
Here's why I would disagree with you. 7, 8, and 9 did need to happen. Here's a large portion as to why. George Lucas told the original trilogy story in a way that he left it with why did the Jedi die? And Luke's new purpose is to restart the Jedi Order. It wasn't the story wasn't at an end at Revenge of the Sith or Return of the Jedi. That wasn't the end of the story. And it was very clear that wasn't the end of the story. And George Lucas even said, I had written a lot more to continue that story.
I didn't actually know that.
Yes.
I'm learning so much tonight, man.
I mean, to me, it feels like I would agree with you. They're kind of separate entities. Each trilogy is pretty complete in its own right.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say George Lucas is he described it as a space opera. You know, it's built into very distinct parts. So each movie, and this is the case with Dune 2. Each movie has it's the intro. Here's the movie. Here's where we're starting from, and then it has your central conflict, complications in that conflict, then the climax, and then the resolution. Each movie that George Lucas did is very built out that way. Really, you can even argue all the ones Disney did are built that way too. Realistically, most movies are. The difference that Dune does is they went through that progression and then kept going. And they started that progression over and ended in the next one. So Dune went through, you had your central conflict, you had the complications, and then you had the kind of the climax of the story and a little bit of the resolution, and then they kind of step into this new, oh, hey, we're starting again. Here's some new characters, and here's the final duel to start off, and now you know where we're going from here. It didn't just end on the cliffhanger of Paul and his mom kind of escaping and wandering through the desert, and boom, end. Well, they didn't do that. They ran into more people, and they had a final duel, and the story kept going. And then they ended it.
And I do think that was intentional by the filmmakers to
Absolutely.
end it there.
And that is brilliant.
But that also then leaves part of the story incomplete.
No. The story of it in itself of the first movie was complete. They gave us a sneak peek into the next story.
So you're saying we got a fragment of the next story?
Yes.
Which, being in the first film, means that the first film has incomplete parts.
No. The first film is complete. Yes, it is a continued story, just as you would say a television show that ends and then on a cliffhanger, or ends and then ends in a dream, and then the next episode they wake up and you see what happens. Like, no.
But you need the next episode in order to have the completion of that story.
Yes. But every single Star Wars movie did that too. Empire Strikes Back. Han is now in carbonite. We don't know what's going to happen.
Wait, that's at the end of Empire Strikes Back, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
And
Sorry, carry on.
So, and realistically, Return of the Jedi was not well received. And it's still, no. It is now. A lot of people like it now, but that's part of that
Empire
is just
Strikes
because
Back wasn't well received.
Empire Strikes was, neither of them were really well received in when theaters came out. But now people will look back on Empire Strikes Back because of Return of the Jedi and see what it was able to build. People's problems with Return of the Jedi was primarily Ewoks, but
That's true.
That's fair. I can understand that.
Okay, but my point is, and it's not necessarily saying that
how
I
is
don't
that
think
any different?
I don't think Star Wars.
How is Empire Strikes Back to Return of the Jedi any different than Dune to what the next one's going to be?
That's my point. We need the next one to be able
No,
to
you
assess
don't,
it.
because Return of the Jedi has no effect on how you think about Empire Strikes Back.
We just said that people have looked back on it now that it's been completed and see it in a new context.
But that's with Return of the Jedi still being poorly received. That's the point I'm trying to make.
I just think that it's too soon to give a fair judgment to Dune.
No,
because
it's
the
not.
story is incomplete.
No, it's not. Absolutely not. That doesn't even make sense. You're saying that one movie, the way that this movie, like the quality of this movie, can change based off of if the story on the next movie, a completely separate movie, is not up to par for you. That makes absolutely no sense. They are separate entities, first of all, and just look at the, like, not plot aside, which is only one small aspect of the film. Every other aspect of Dune is incredible. The sound design, the set design, the costumes, character development is extremely well done in this movie, and that is something that flew under the radar for me the first time I watched it, because I was kind of just in awe of how good the whole movie was. And the second time I went and watched it, I was like, okay, but was there a lot of character development for any of these characters? And there is. And you go back and you watch it and you see Paul Atreides kind of shift from this person who just kind of feels the pressure of everything and is kind of confused about what's going on, to this person who at the end of the movie is ready and angry and who wants to do his father proud. And the development for his character, and even his mom, who is kind of this person who's just been sheltering her son and who is kind of been training him to prepare him, and at the end of it, she's seeing him kind of move into this, doesn't think he's ready, and sees him take ownership, and he says, no, I want to stay, I don't want to leave. The character development in the movie is incredible. Genuinely better than any of the Star Wars movies. Even though I love Star Wars. That is something that it has over them. A follow-up story, the continuation of the story has no impact on this story, on this movie.
So, let me let me just paint a picture here and kind of try to make a comparison that doesn't necessarily involve Star Wars, because I don't think that Star Wars and the way that that franchise has, kind of been presented to the world is an exact comparison. So if we're watching one movie or one story, and we say that, the first act was really good, the setup, the world building in that was really cool, but then the finale of the movie, like the climax of it and the ending to it, was done poorly. Do we look at the whole story itself, or do we look at just the first act being a part of that? And the reason that I think this comparison is fair...
Let me give you two comparisons right here.
So
no, I understand what
please
you're saying.
let me finish.
No. Game of Thrones. Right. That's a good example, I think, supporting what you're saying. A lot of people hate Game of Thrones, right?
Because it was finished
because
very
of
poorly.
The ending. Does that mean people don't go back and recognize that, the first 3 or 4 seasons of that show are incredible? They don't go back and say, the first 3 or 4 seasons were also garbage. They're garbage because the ending was garbage. No. They go back and they say, yeah, the first 4 seasons were incredible. I loved that show. And yes, the ending ruined maybe their feelings towards the show, but that's because the ending, and they still loved the first 4 seasons. Another example, Sword Art Online. Season 1. Horrible ending. Abrupt, weird first part. Everyone still recognizes that the story was so good and that it was awesome. And yes, while it didn't end great, they still love season 1. It is still one of their favorite things to watch and is still rewatchable. So if movie 2 of Dune isn't great and doesn't live up to people's expectations, that does not change how good the first movie was.
I agree. It was good. Obviously, it was a little jarring with the theater experience we had, but
I'm so sorry that you saw that for the first time in 4DX. That makes me so sad.
You know what? I was like, sure, let's try it. Why not? And I was like, God, I did not like that. I know. Like our buddy Chris was like, yeah, dude, I'm gonna go do that every time. I'm like, no, but that's besides the point. The movie was good. I did enjoy it. I would still like to see what part 2 brings, but I still appreciate what part 1 has done. Like I said, I didn't put it on my list because, well, one, I had so many others that I'm like, I can't not pick these. And 2, it was very recent for me, and I want to see how, I want to give it a little more time and perhaps another watch to take in more of it. You know what I mean? I understand, it's good. Score's cool. Visuals are awesome. Again, director does a great job. I would like to see part 2 and see how it goes.
But it has no impact on part 1.
No, I know. It just
doesn't.
Andy, why is Matrix number 1 for you?
Well, for my kind of rubric that I set up to kind of rank these films, because once I got to my top 5, I had to come up with some way to figure out which one was my favorite. So I just felt like The Matrix has, a good sci-fi film needs to raise some kind of philosophical, ethical questions about science or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I feel like The Matrix does a good job of that. It does it in a kind of pop philosophy kind of way, but I think it still makes it kind of accessible. Mm-hmm. I ranked it as far as influence, which I think we all know every movie after The Matrix had bullet time, and that kind of cinematography was just everywhere.
Yep.
And then just the impact and the cultural kind of relevance of it.
Yeah.
My girlfriend's not a sci-fi fan, she does like Star Wars and some other movies, but she still knows what The Matrix is and what it's about. And I think it's just something that's kind of permeated sci-fi culture and culture in general. So
everyone knows about slow-mo time because of The Matrix.
Yeah.
Well, and when people make jokes about real life, our real life is actually our dreams, and our dreams are our real life.
The simulation jokes.
Yeah. It's just,
Yeah, or
Yeah.
there's like deja vu and it's just a glitch in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a household kind of joke, you know.
Yeah.
But we all appreciate the origins of the joke.
I do love the Matrix movies. It has been a long time since I've seen them. I'm very excited for the new one. So maybe we should just rank them all when the new one comes out.
I'm very excited for that new one.
Yeah.
I will
Well,
go
as somebody
see it.
who has never actually seen the Matrix movies,
Okay.
I do kind of get what you're saying about the cultural impact of it, and like I know a fair amount of kind of at least like the base kind of storyline and like what the Matrix is and kind of how the story goes, just from pop culture and references that have been made. So I would be interested in possibly taking a maybe a closer look and diving into those as a discussion. But that's the main reason that it's not on my list, is simply because I haven't seen it. So
That's fair.
Yeah, I don't remember. Like, I have this bad habit, or it's just what my brain does. If I see them in one setting, which is what I did the first time I watched the Matrix movies. I watched all of them
back to back.
back to back.
That's like 7 hours.
I
at
do.
least.
My brain does a really bad job of being able to separate them.
Which
It's
one's
like
which?
I observed or absorbed them all at the same time. So it's like, oh shoot, which one?
almost as if it was an Act
Yeah.
1, Act 2, and Act 3.
Yeah.
No.
Kind of.
I mean, it is.
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't know. I do really, really enjoy them. I definitely need to rewatch them. I actually borrowed them from my dad so that I could rewatch them.
Yeah, let's do it.
They're also on HBO Max.
Oh shoot, I didn't know that. And I have HBO Max. Oh well, too late.
There's something just about the physical copy.
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
It's just
it's
nostalgia.
Blu-ray, man. It's better.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, that was my very first DVD that I owned, was the first Matrix.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I actually have it on standard DVD up there, and I didn't know that.
That's
So
right, because
I-
you grabbed your dad's copy and you're like, oh, I
Yeah, I
have these
I was
already.
putting it on the DVD show. I was like, oh, okay.
You're
Yeah.
decorating the set, but I will say a lot of the reasons I picked a lot of the movies I did was because they have like iconic roles from all the a lot of the major characters, like The Matrix, Keanu Reeves. That's one of the roles he's known for, besides John Wick, obviously. The Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Linda Hamilton and Michael Biehn. Like those are big. Like those are roles that a lot of people know them for. Obviously, Alien, Sigourney Weaver. I think will forever be known as Ellen Ripley. Like there's no changing that.
Yeah, that's right.
I think the reason I picked Blade Runner, even though it's not like it's sub iconic for Harrison Ford, and the fact that like obviously Star Wars will overshadow like the majority of his works, but
Yeah.
it's like you said, it's a role where it makes you question something about life. It's like, what does it mean to be human? And like especially like the whole scene at the end where Roy like saves Deckard, spoiler alert, even though like he has every reason not to. And he gives this whole beautiful speech about like, I've seen all this stuff that you people who are human wouldn't believe, It's like
The
he's
whole-
seen all this stuff and nobody else will ever experience it.
The
So
whole Tears in the Rain speech.
Yes.
Classic. Yeah.
it's one of my favorite movie just speeches ever. Like I remember the first time I actually heard it and I was like, whoa. It's very eye-opening. I was like, wow.
Yeah. So
And obviously Empire Strikes Back, because Empire Strikes Back, let's be honest.
'cause
There's
Empire Strikes
It's
Back.
just it's bigger, badder, and better than the original Star Wars, which I mean, I didn't think is possible, but they expanded on an already huge universe and just like everything about it was a little bit better than A New Hope.
Yeah.
So, and why? I don't disagree with you. Empire Strikes Back is a phenomenal film, but why that over the one that I picked, which is Return of the Jedi?
Couple reasons for me. One, Ewoks. I just don't like the Ewoks.
I didn't mind it.
As a lot of people. Now, George Lucas has said multiple times, and I agree with him. It's his story. He should tell it the way he wants. Star Wars is for kids, as he says. And the Ewoks were kind of him trying to show that. I want it to be for all ages. This is a thing that all the kids can like. And that's the same thing with Jar Jar and why he had the humor he had.
Oh my god.
You know, it was him trying to appeal to little kids to like the series. But, you know, it wasn't for me. Two, cultural impact from Empire Strikes Back is just immensely more relevant than The Return of the Jedi or
It has one of the most like iconic movie twists ever.
Yeah, and
Like,
it's
no,
something
I
that,
am your father. It's like, what?
Yeah, and a lot of people hated that at first, and now when you look back on it, it's like, okay, that was
Because
no one saw it coming.
Well, because they went back and obviously, like you said, George Lucas had stories already lined up. Just those ones weren't made yet.
Yeah.
So now we know why all of this has happened in the Star Wars universe, and now we can be like, now it makes sense.
Yeah, it's just a powerful movie. It had a lot of weird twists at the end that at the time were loved by some and hated by a lot. The whole, you know, revelation that Luke has that Leia's his well, that happened that was at the beginning of Return of the Jedi, actually.
It was.
Yeah.
Because
that was when he was leaving. Okay. Yeah, it was okay. You're right, because he didn't realize that until after Darth Vader told him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was kind of hinted at when they were leaving Cloud City, and Leia's like,
Yeah.
we have to go back.
Yeah.
So,
Foreshadowing.
yeah, exactly.
Well, even in Empire, when Luke's leaving Dagobah to go back to
Yeah,
Cloud
and
City, Yoda says there is another.
Yeah.
that too,
Yeah.
yes.
You just have no idea who it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's exciting. Like George Lucas is a master at, you know, foreshadowing. Really, he is.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
there's just small like throwaway sentences that make sense in the world. They're not like revealing anything too serious. Like I'm sure, you know, I didn't see it in theaters. But
I don't think any of us did.
I was not born yet.
I saw the re-releases in the 90s.
Nice.
Yeah.
I actually have. I didn't know this until like well into my, I think it was high school. Like the ones I have on DVD are the re-releases, because like in A New Hope, there's that scene where Han has that conversation with Jabba at the Millennium Falcon,
Yep.
and I've always known that to be part of the movie. And my parents are like, "That scene wasn't in." I'm like, "What do you mean? It's right there." They're like, "No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
This is." And I go back and look at the thing. I'm
Added
like,
later.
"Oh." What's like also how they edited Hayden Christensen
Yeah.
in the end of Return of the Jedi, when really it was, oh my god, I forget his name. It was another
Prowess?
older actor who was supposed to be like Darth Vader or whatever, but they just edited Anakin Skywalker or whatever in there.
Yeah.
But,
I don't remember his name.
The guy in the suit was named, I think, David Prowess or something
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But the guy who actually played him in the mask reveal, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Because it was basically three people that played
Yeah.
Darth
Yeah.
Vader.
You had James Earl Jones as the voice, the guy at the end when Luke takes his mask off, and then the old guy in the spirit version at the
Yeah.
fire.
Yeah.
It's like, how many, what? But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a little bit more impactful to me. It did a really, really good job of balancing multiple storylines too, and at that time, that wasn't something that was done well in movies.
Yeah.
And even in Return of the Jedi, it's not done nearly as well, in my opinion. And it's done a shorter amount too, but for less of the film, I should say. But I don't know. I think Empire Strikes Back just had more iconic scenes. It was a little bit more culturally impactful. To me, it was just made a little bit better.
Yeah, I just like in Return of the Jedi the dynamic between Luke, Vader, and
The Emperor.
the Emperor, and that kind of question of can we find forgiveness, or is there a way back to the light once you've gone down so far down the dark side?
Yeah,
I'll give you that. That's fair.
It's a great ending to the story. I absolutely agree with you. But there's a lot of other aspects to the film that I just didn't like. A lot of their time on Endor, I was just kind of like, all right. When I rewatched the movie, I just kind of skipped through it to get to the end, or watch the beginning of the movie, with the scene at Jabba's palace. But I don't know.
What was it particularly about the Ewoks that you didn't like?
It just felt like a screen waste. Like I would have rather seen more of other characters than see so many little cutscenes of these Ewoks. There were aspects. Genuinely, I don't mind the Ewoks being there that much. I just wish there was a little less screen time dedicated to them and more to the actual characters we cared about.
Okay, so it was just a little unnecessary.
Yeah, it was a little much.
Okay.
If I don't know, there's just small little scenes that it's like, okay, we're watching an Ewok waddle along and then play peekaboo with Leia. It's like I don't care. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think some aspect of the Ewoks, I mean, he wanted to make it more accessible to kids, but a lot of it was about that time when like the action figures were really taking off.
Yeah.
And I think they just wanted to make it more like toyetic.
Yeah.
Just to sell more
merchandise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But honestly, I don't mind the Ewoks. I mean, not every planet can be Wookiees and
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So.
I don't mind them. I just think that if they had a little less screen time and we could have added something more to the story, we could have seen a little bit more. There, like if you think about it, like there's a cap on how entertaining the Ewoks can be and how entertaining something else could have been. I think the Ewoks were pretty capped out, and something else could have been way more fun to watch.
That's
true. That's just how I look at that. Like if there's a scene in a movie that kind of makes me want to skip through it, then I just think that scene might have either dragged on just a little too long or just wasn't something that, was super important to the story. And that's what a lot of their time on Endor is to me.
I'm curious about how much of those like little cutscenes and things like that of the Ewoks that they cut out when they came to their final cut.
This is an
Like,
extra 20 minutes.
Originally, we had way more.
It's just like there's like minutes upon minutes left on the cutting floor in the editing room. It's like, no, we got to move that.
We kept only what we deemed essential.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. So what were other movies on you guys'? You had
we both
had
had
one
Alien.
I didn't know. What's your number 4?
Probably Gattaca.
Yes. What is that?
So Gattaca is a film with Ethan Hawke and Jude Law and Uma Thurman, and it's set not far in the future. I mean, it's from the 90s, but it's set in like a very near future where humans have been like genetically altered from birth to be like perfect, so there's no like diseases, and they can weed out like heart disease and alcoholism and all these things so that people are the best human that they can be, is what they say. But the problems that it creates is like the people who are already born are now like discriminated against because they're not like genetically perfect, so they get all the menial labor jobs. But basically the plot of the movie is Ethan Hawke's character wants to be an astronaut. That's all he wants to do. It's all he's ever wanted to do. But he can't because he can't pass the physical exams and everything. But in this future, you can steal someone else's biological identity. And so he does this and passes himself off at this corporation called Gattaca to become an astronaut. So it covers a lot of ground as far as, a lot of kind of ethical questions about, because we're kind of on that cusp of like genetic discrimination. There's all these kind of like gene editing cures for diseases on the horizon. And it's just a very pertinent film, even more now than it was.
Yeah.
And it just has a very good kind of like retro futuristic kind of noir aesthetic to it. It's just a very well done sci-fi film.
That sounds cool.
I really want to watch that now.
That sounds pretty sweet.
I'll add it to our list.
Yes, add it to the list.
We have such a big Patreon movie list now at this point.
We really don't.
Do we? Do we not? I mean,
there's like 3 things.
Well, no, we have that. Are we doing the whole Matrix trilogy? That's because that's 3 movies.
I'm open to that. And Blade Runner.
And Blade Runner, that's 5.
Every time we talk about a movie, we're
Dude,
just gonna
I
add it
swear,
to
every
the
time.
The Blair Witch Project and Ants are on there.
When did we add ants? I don't remember
when
that.
we did underrated Pixar movies and we were comparing Bug's Life to
Oh
Ants.
my, yeah. I forgot about that.
I'm okay with skipping that one.
We'll read through this list later.
Yeah, we're gonna reconvene on that later. Did everyone? I mean, I feel like everyone for the. Is there anything else like you wanted to talk about, Andy? I want to make sure like you have a chance to.
Well, did we go through everyone's movies?
I think we.
I think the
I know
only
you-
one that wasn't.
We didn't discuss Alien.
Or Back to the Future. Part
Ooh,
one.
yeah,
That was
do-
another one on my list
Yeah,
too.
let's do Back to the Future real quick. I haven't seen Back to the Future. I've seen it. I've never watched it all the way through once, but I have
Honestly,
like
same.
when it comes on TNT and stuff like on TV, I'll catch it like halfway through, or like I've seen it in parts. So I know it's a great movie, and I need to watch it at some point. But why is it on this list?
I felt like I had to include some sort of time travel sci-fi film on there just because it's such a good like genre of sci-fi. And Back to the Future, I mean, is also just a very iconic film. I mean, everyone knows what a DeLorean is.
88
Most times
miles
when you
per
see a
hour.
DeLorean on the road, you're like, oh, I wonder if he's time travel. You know, like you think
Yeah.
it's Doc Brown.
Yeah.
Is he gonna hit 88 miles per hour?
Yeah. And just like the soundtrack, I mean, it's like Huey Lewis in the news and lots. It's just like
Yeah.
a very,
Yeah.
it's very 80s, but again, it's just such a iconic sci-fi film. And, you know, again, it does kind of raise those questions like, should you go back in time if you're able to, the grandfather paradox, like if you're able to like, you know, end your own life due to killing your mom or whatever, you know, those
Yeah.
kinds of questions. So,
It is pretty like it's got its funny moments too. Like it's a sci-fi movie, but it's kind of a comedy on the
Yeah.
down low. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Isn't there a scene in that? It's been a long time since I've seen it, but where his mom hits on him.
yeah.
So
Yes.
it's not only
Yes.
like killing yourself by killing your mom, but also maybe creating yourself by
A
getting
sort
with
of
your
like
mom.
by hooking up with your
complex going on. Yeah. Or if anyone's ever seen Futurama, where Fry they go back to like 1945 and he becomes his own grandpa
Yeah,
because he, does the nasty and the pasty, as they say.
yeah. Well, and then there's, cultural impact as well. I mean, even more modernly, Rick and Morty was designed or was like a kind of fan theory kind of retelling of the relationship between Doc Brown and Marty.
Mm-hmm. Well, doesn't Christopher Lloyd, wasn't he cast as Rick? Or there's some kind of video where he
I
looks
don't
like-
I don't know. I didn't watch a whole lot of Rick and Morty, to be honest. I watched like the first 4 episodes of season 3 when they were coming out with my buddy. And that's really all I saw. It was cool, but I didn't stick with it. So
Yeah.
It's on
you have
DVD.
season 3. I was about to say you have it. It's on the shelf. The listeners can't see it, but we redecorated the set and it looks really cool. And we have a bunch of movies up there
and books.
and books and adult beverage bottles.
Yeah. All right. So Josh has 2001: A Space Odyssey at number 1. That is a movie I really wanted to be in my top 5, but trying to be as unbiased as possible, doing my scoring, it fell just outside of it at number 6. I'm interested to hear why you have it at number 1.
Well, I think that it's such a vague movie, and there's a lot of different interpretations to it. But it's also it's a very visual movie. There's only probably about like 30 to 40 minutes of dialogue in it. And a lot of things are kind of meant to be left open and kind of open to interpretation. And it was created as like the ending of it it's like a 10-minute kind of ending kind of scene that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And it was created that way so that you would leave the theater and start asking questions, and it was meant to be provocative of that, and not, kind of have an answer. Like if you were able to leave the film knowing exactly what happened, the film didn't do its job. So, and I think just because it gets some into kind of human evolution and how we kind of evolved to be the way that we are, was there something that had, played a role in that? And then there's, the ethics of AI and what actually is, intelligence and how should we use it. And then it also goes into, what is the next step of human evolution.
Yeah.
So I think it does that, like you said, sci-fi is supposed to kind of ask kind of a moral question and use the medium to kind of present that and start the conversation and look at the morality of things. And I think it does that in a really good way.
Yeah, for sure. It covers a lot of bases too, like you said, between AI and these sort of questions of, what kind of interactions happened in the past to influence our evolution. And there's kind of like, there's sci-fi before 2001 and then there's sci-fi after 2001.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It was very close to being on my list as well, but I think we talked about this, like, it is like over 50 years old and it's highly influential, and I think that it's kind of, other films have knocked it off the top because of its influence on them, in a way.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
It just didn't make my list because I never saw it. You
Fair
also
enough.
told me, Nate, that you're like, you can watch this movie, but I don't think you'll like it. And I was like, okay.
I would love to see your reaction to watching it. I don't think you will like it.
Probably,
It is a phenomenal movie. It is in my top 20 just movies of all time, for sure. If George Lucas can say this movie helped to inspire Star Wars, then it should definitely be in consideration for this argument. So I'm glad at least one of us had it on their list, for sure. It is a great movie. It is, like Josh said, it's a very make you think movie. There is very little dialogue in it. There are entire, like, the last 12 minutes of the movie is just bright colors, shining in your
very
eyes.
surreal stuff going on in those last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So basically, if you're tripping, do not watch 2001:
No, that's the
A
best
Space
time
Odyssey.
to watch it.
Or do. I can't tell you what to do.
Honestly, you could not be tripping, and by the time you get through the movie, you will be tripping.
You will be tripping.
Fair. All right. Fair enough.
Yeah, it's a great movie. I remember the first time I watched it. Actually, so on my scoring thing, there was a little an extra 5 points that could be earned that are just bias points. How biased I am towards that movie.
You put all 5 of the bias points from everything to Dune, didn't you?
No,
Okay.
Dune did get 5. That would be a lie if I had said otherwise. It got
Okay,
5.
that's fair.
2001: A Space Odyssey got 4. Spade Odyssey.
Spade Odyssey.
2001 got 4 bias points. So the bias points on here purely refer to how I felt after I watched the movie and what I did after I watched that movie. So did I go and tell everyone I know about that movie? Do I specifically remember in my mind the exact situation the first time I saw that movie? So with 2001: A Space Odyssey, I was sitting on the ground in my parents' house, and he was on the couch behind me, and he said, "I think you should watch this movie. You're not going to like it, though."
That's exactly what happened with you and me.
Yeah, and he starts playing it, and I'm sitting here watching this movie. I'm like, what the heck am I watching? I was maybe 6 years old, 5 or 6 years old.
6?
Maybe a little older, not much. I was.
Oh my God.
I was mid to late elementary school. And so I'm watching this, and I have no idea what's going on. I'm in elementary school, man. I'm like, what am I watching? Why are there a bunch of monkeys beating things with bones? And what is this?
I want to be monkey.
What is this black thing just sitting there? I'm like, what is going on? But I told everyone about it. I was like, I felt so cool after watching that movie. I was like, all I could think about was what that meant. And my dad wouldn't tell me. He was like, "Nah, I figure it out." I was like, "What do you mean?"
Able to tell you.
I was like, "What do you mean?"
Yeah.
Yeah. He was like, "No,
I don't know.
figure it
Ask your
out."
mother. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I told everyone at church. I told all of my Sunday school teachers. I was like, "I just watched this movie. Have you seen it?" They're like, "No, I haven't." I was like, "You should watch it." And a couple of years later, I rewatched it with my dad. I think I was in middle school, maybe high school at this point. Rewatched it and actually talked about it a lot, but that left a very lasting impact on me. But not necessarily the reason why I think it scored a little bit lower is it didn't leave a lasting impact on me necessarily because of how good it was, but because of purely because of the effect it had on me of just questioning what it meant. What is this? It does not spill out the story for you. So I love that movie though. That is one I have rewatched many times.
Yep.
What else? I feel like there's more movies. I have one movie left that I have not talked about, and you two both have one movie that you have not talked about, right?
Well, I mean, I did kind of discuss Terminator. I mean, Terminator's like Back to the Future, where it's it's time travel, and I mean, again, like I said earlier, it's one of the iconic roles for Arnold Schwarzenegger.
It's Terminator.
Yeah,
we've all seen Terminator, right?
No.
Oh my gosh.
There's a lot of classic movies that I just haven't seen, but I have also seen a lot of movies that are very kind of niche and just not important.
I think the reason I picked Terminator and Alien was not only are they awesome movies in their own right, but also the sequels to them are equally good. Like Terminator 2, I think it's an awesome sequel. It's a great movie. There actually is a special edition too, which has 8 minutes of extra footage that kind of adds to the story a little bit more. It's not all necessary, but if you're into that kind of background stuff about that, and it builds on the universe a little more. Also, Aliens, there's so it's the perfect example of just kind of opening up, like we said with Empire Strikes Back. It opens up the universe a little bit more, and it brings more just raw action. There's some hilarious one-liners in Aliens too. It's so good. And neither of those sequels will be possible without the first one. So that's the big reason why I had Alien and Terminator on my list, was because they're good. They have equally good sequels, and they're both staple franchises that people know. They just they're huge movies.
I actually don't have Terminator in my top 20.
I almost had T2
Oh, yeah, I do.
on my
Never mind.
list, but
I wanted to put it on my list too because I've seen it a lot of times as well. I think that was one of the first R-rated movies my parents ever let me watch. It was either that or Stand By Me or something like that.
Really?
It was one of those two. It was my
love
first
Stand By
R-rated
Me.
movie.
It's a great
That's
movie.
a good one. But yeah, that's pretty much it for all my. Like I said, I told you earlier. I'm you're gonna understand my list. You might
It's a
not
very
like it.
Kyle list.
It is. No, I'm very simple. I'm easy to please with a lot of stuff. But again, like I said, all these movies are just iconic. They have staying power in the sci-fi genre. They're just so cool.
So I haven't talked about this one. Avatar, 2009, James Cameron. So I have that. That's my number 4. So it actually scored decently low, I guess. It got an 89.5. All the points it missed were due to plot depth. The plot,
There were plot holes.
No, not necessarily holes. Just it's Josh.
Pocahontas in space.
It's Pocahontas. in space.
It's Fern Gully. It's a retelling
Yeah.
of Fern Gully.
Yeah.
Okay.
It really is. And it is great.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the reason I scored it the way I've scored it and how high I've scored it is because of how revolutionary it was when it came out. The technology it introduced visually was on another level. Everyone that saw it in theaters had their mind blown, just sitting there watching it what am I looking at? This world, this other world is so bright and colorful, and I've never quite seen something this vivid. And the story was cool. There's a lot of cool concepts that are unique, and how the Na'vi are connected to the species of the world, how they literally are connecting their bodies to each other to ride each other and to kind of cohabitate. It's really unique and really cool. So I really like that movie.
Yeah,
But
Halo.
Yeah, but I will admit it is a very predictable story that doesn't necessarily make you think a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean it is straightforward. I mean, some people like that. I mean, a lot of these movies are, for the most part, straightforward. Like Star Wars, it's like, hey, there's this kid who joins this rebel alliance to fight the Empire or whatever, this overarching power. Terminator, hey, there's this bad guy who travels back through time to kill somebody before this whole other thing, you know. So just some people like that, some people want more, but
Also, just the sound design for Avatar is really, really cool.
I haven't watched it recently. Like,
So the unique sounds that they come up with for the characters and for not the characters, the species,
the creatures and
the
everything.
creatures on the planet, it's really cool. The ships actually sound good. Like that's
the mechs sounded cool. I
Yeah,
remember
like,
that. The mechs were like just
a lot of the sound design really impressed me in Avatar. The overall mix was really good. There's a lot of movies that I've seen, specifically sci-fi movies, that the mix isn't always the greatest. Big budget sci-fi movies have great mixes, but
because they have the money to spend to make sure
Yeah.
it sounds good.
yep. But it sounded great, and I do really, really enjoy the score. It didn't quite move me like Star Wars or Jurassic Park,
yeah.
but it's no John Williams score, but it is a very, very good
Who
score.
did the score for that?
Honestly, could not tell you. Do not remember.
I just realized, in one way or another, like the majority of our movies are all somehow tied to James Cameron.
A fair amount of them, yeah.
Yeah, because Avatar, Terminator, he made the sequel to Aliens, but what else? There's something else.
Oh, it's James Horner.
I can't remember.
That's awesome.
I think that was it.
That might be it, but yeah, he's got a few.
He's one of the head sci-fi directors. I feel like he knows how to make a good concept and story. Did we go through everybody's movies? We got through. We got through yours. We got through.
We haven't talked about Planet of the Apes.
We
Ooh,
haven't. Oh my
ooh.
goodness.
So you're going with the original 1968?
That's the one with. Who's
Charlton
is it?
Heston.
It is. I was
Yeah.
gonna say Charlton Heston. I was like, is that the same guy? I was thinking of somebody else.
Yeah, it's a cool look at kind of like race relations, and how makes us identify with the ones being kind of oppressed, or the lesser, and kind of actually take a look at the way that we treat each other and the impact that has on our culture and society.
Yeah.
I love Planet of the Apes.
I watched that movie a lot when I was a kid. What year was that? Did that come out?
68.
68, yeah.
Okay.
Same year as Space Odyssey.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that was the original one. Like the only one I had seen when I was a kid was it Mark Wahlberg or Matt Damon? I don't remember.
It was Mark
Mark-
Wahlberg.
It was Mark
yeah.
Wahlberg. That was the first one that I saw, and I didn't know that there was another one that came before it. And so I would see it on TV, and I'm like, wait, what?
I have them all.
Oh, like the original?
I think I have the whole series. Do I not?
Or is that just the modern Planet of the Apes trilogy?
Oh, it might be the modern. I have the originals at my dad's house. I will go get them.
Okay.
All
right.
They are great. I loved the Planet of the Apes movies. I also remember I also gave it a biased points 4 out of 5.
Figures.
I watched that in Nebraska with my family. It's a great movie. Yeah. I do really enjoy the movie. It was number 8 on my list though.
And I mean, as far as twist endings go, I mean, that one's up there. I mean, as
Yeah.
a kid, I was like, I don't even know if I fully understood what that meant when he finds the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
But I'm like, something ain't right,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
Yep.
Do we want to go ahead and get to awarding points?
Yeah. We can do that.
This one went really long. I mean, understandably so. For audience right now, obviously you can see we're about like an hour 4 minutes in right now.
Yeah.
I
I mean, we're all very I love sci-fi. I know Andy loves sci-fi.
I mean, I do. Obviously, not as much as either of you, but, I like Star Wars.
Yeah.
I like other unknown sci-fi movies like Blade Runner. I don't know. I'm not as hardcore. I don't know.
Yeah, I like movies in general, but haven't necessarily explored a lot of sci-fi, kind of in the more kind of iconic ones that have been listed. So
have you actually seen Planet of the Apes?
Nope.
You haven't seen Planet of the Apes?
Nope.
The Matrix?
Nope.
The Terminator?
Nope.
All right, so we're gonna have a sci-fi weekend with Josh.
Yes.
You just do the thing from Clockwork Orange where you just like get his eyelids open and make him watch them all in a row.
I like that. Yeah, we'll do it.
Yeah.
All right. Who wants to start?
I honestly have no
We're
idea
starting with Kyle.
who I want to award points to. Man. How are we doing? We're still doing this obviously by like who convinced us the most or whose list we agree with the most, or
Yeah, you can justify it however you want. You can justify it and say, well, outside of my own list, I like that person's list the most. You can justify it, hey, my list is the best. I hate all of your lists, but you made a good point on this whatever argument, so I'll give you a point. Or you can just say, my list is superior, you're all dumb, I'm not giving anyone a point.
Okay, my point goes to Andy. The reason because
It's most similar to yours.
well, I mean, yes, he and I have similar movies in common, but I also like how he stood up for Matrix as number one, and how and May was like, hey, this is a lot of these movies afterwards came after it, so it's like its own influence, like how 2001: The Space Odyssey was its influence, or how Star Wars was its influence. But yeah, like a lot of the like. You and I basically have similar lists and understand why those should be on a top 5 list, or it should be considered at least if someone's thinking about it. So, Andy, you get my point for tonight.
Cool.
Josh.
um,
I'm genuinely thinking. I don't.
yeah. I'm going to shoot. I'm going to give my point to Kyle. I think there's enough of those movies on his list that I have not actually seen, but through hearing the way that he talked about them, make me really want to see them. So, not that they haven't been on my list for a while, but they make me want to bump them up a little bit higher.
Andy, do you know who you want to reward a point to? Or are you still thinking? Because I'm still thinking.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Ultimately, I would probably have to give the point to Kyle as well, just because we did have similar lists, and while I do agree with several films from both of your guys' lists, yeah, I just have to go with Kyle.
Let's go.
I'm going to be an ass.
You're not giving out a point,
I'm
are
not
you?
giving out a point.
That's fair.
I'm sorry.
That's fair.
Well, I'm close to giving Josh a point. The only reason I think I'm not going to is because there is one movie that I haven't seen on your list, and I am not really that interested to see. Like, I'll watch it for sure with you, but
What movie was it?
I don't remember.
The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Very good film.
Yeah,
that one.
Okay.
Probably is great.
It almost leans more into like a romantic tragedy,
Yeah.
and kind of like the feeling of it, than it does kind of more sci-fi. But
I'm also just salty that you put Planet of the Apes on your list and haven't seen it. So I'm gonna refrain.
well, to be fair, I
from...
haven't seen 2001: A Space Odyssey.
All right,
either.
I'm definitely not giving you.
That
a
is
point.
also true.
So yeah, I'm not gonna reward a point.
Alrighty, so here's the point total at the end of this week's Parlay episode. Nate, 0. Josh, 0. The guests, Andy, have 1, and I have 2. Yay!
And Kyle takes the lead.
Yeah. There's still a lot left to go in the month.
Yeah.
But I love how we've started.
Well, Josh and I are in last. Woo! All right.
Well, that's it for today's episode. Be sure to join us on the next episode where we will continue to debate as good friends do. Follow us on Instagram and YouTube and stay up to date on all things Asshat. and to participate in polls and activities throughout the week based on the themes of the upcoming episodes.
We also started a Patreon for those of you who are interested in showing your support in a more direct way. On our Patreon, we have a ton of bonus content, including tier lists, loser dinners, and bonus podcast episodes.
We want to continue making content that makes you think, smile, and especially laugh. And the best way that you guys can help us do that, leave a like or a comment, download and share all these episodes with your friends and family members who you think would enjoy our tomfoolery, our shenanigans, and all those other crazy words that encapsulate our content.